been looking for some axles. First of all, welcome back to another weekly update of what's going on in the shop this week. Some things have changed. We had a plan to do one thing this week, and now I'm kind of doing another thing. But over the weekend, I was cruising through Facebook Marketplace and I actually found a killer deal on a set of axles that I needed for the Colorado project. So I jumped in the Yoda this morning. Believe it or not, this little Yoda ended up picking him up, and I ran down and I picked up a fin bottom. So that's a newer 14 bolt. So it's got the big bearing and it's got the rear disc brakes, which I really liked. I got that axle and a front Dana 60, 99 to 04 Dana 60. Picked up both of these axles for $500 for the pair. They are complete as I need them. Obviously there's no brakes, but in all honesty, I'd probably be buying new rotors and new calipers anyway for both. These unit bearings are trash because we'll be upgrading to a 35 spline. But aside from that, everything else on them is perfect for what I need. I'm going to do the Artec high steer conversion on this knuckle, but I was glad to get that steering because honestly, I think I can use it on another project that I got sitting outside right now, or at least I can use it as a tie rod for now. But yeah, that was a super score. I mean, $500, that's a deal. You know, a lot of people like the 05 and up Super Duties a little bit better. I don't like them, to be honest with you. I love everything about them. I hate working with them. There's a big cast thing you have to cut off the front. It's so hard to deal with. I'd much rather deal with the 99 to 04. So that's the plan for these today. Just get them unloaded, get them set aside. I'm not going to start working on them yet because we've got to film that. Then I'll show you what we're supposed to work on this week. But that kind of changes. So we were supposed to do some filming on that with Kevin Tates and John McGann, but we had some scheduling conflicts pop up for them, so that's going to sit for this week. And I think I'm going to jump on the Bomber. My plan was to work on this next week, but I'll just move it up a week. My goal this week is to get the suspension done in the rear, so that means I got to cut all the trailing arms for the back, get the upper shock mounts done, get the upper shock mounts done for the shocks, 2 trailing arms, upper link mounts, and then at the same time the front, I got to get the leading arms cut for the front, which means they'll come off this, got to finish my engine skid, get that all done. So I think what I'll do right now is get ready to clean this whole table off, head over to the plasma table, start burning out some steel. First step in doing these trailing arms, lay out all the cut files that I got from DIY Off-Road. You can see right here, actually they're from a company called Tech Consulting, but what I'm doing is all these pieces, I'm going to cut at 1/4 inch. So I'm going to load a sheet 1/4 inch onto the fast cut table. I'm going to cut those out, and then I'm going to lay out the next batch on 3/16. So you can kind of see this is what I'm building. So I already put one together already on four-wheeler. So you can see it kind of go together. You can see this one here is 3/16. It's 100% 3/16. But after getting it together, I kind of made the decision that what I want to do is I want to make these sides at 1/4 and the bottom brace at 1/4, and as well as the backbone that goes down the middle at 1/4, just because this is basically, you know, it's a legit rock crawler. And you can see when you buy these, what you're going to get is basically a blueprint breakdown, all the cut files that you're going to need, and then basically what's called a WPO, weld process order sheet. So basically it gives you the entire process of welding it, putting it together, making sure everything's done right. This is definitely worth the money. I think the file for this cost maybe $50 for the file. I mean, it would have taken me months to design this thing. And then at the front is going to be an anti-wobble. This is a TMR Customs anti-wobble at the front. and then at the back is 1.25 inch heim, and then they do give you the cut requirement. This is a piece of 2-inch tubing that fits in there with a standard tube adapter, and that's pretty normal right there. So now all I got to do is cut out a bunch of steel. Since it's going to be such an important cut, I'm going to go ahead and swap out all the consumables in my Thermodynamics machine torch. I do all my cutting with a Thermodynamics A60i. That's an automated 60i. It's not a high def plasma, it's just a regular plasma. But a couple things that really make good cuts. Number one, good steel. I always make sure to get P&O steel from my local yard. Costs a little bit more money, but it's definitely worth it. Number two, my air line. Actually, the air travels quite a distance before it gets to the plasma table. You can see it goes all the way across, up over the ceiling. The air compressor's on the other side of the shop. But when the air comes down, it goes through a secondary cleaner and dryer right here. And then it gets fed into my refrigerator dryer right here. And then it goes into the actual plasma cutter. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna swap out to a new tip. I like these Thermodynamics Black Series. These are really, really good. They last a little bit longer, but when I'm doing big cuts like this on something important, I always swap out the consumables before I start. So the way this works now is I have everything laid out on my sheet cam, and through sheet cam I was able to go ahead and run what material thickness I'm cutting. I'm cutting it on the 1/4 inch plate, and then that processed out a G code. The G code is now done, and then I loaded it into my loader for my table. So you can see this is what we're cutting out right here. You can see this is my x-axis. That's where I'm going to start. That's my bottom left-hand corner of the cut, and then it's just going to cut all these out. The fast cut table uses a Xbox controller. A lot of people ask why it has an Xbox controller, and the theory is pretty simple. All plasma tables need some type of controller because you want to be able to mark home for where you're going to start, and then you need a way to start and stop the file. So what Fast Cut does is they actually use an Xbox controller, Bluetooth into the computer. The reason they do that is if anything was to ever happen with the controller for my machine, it's not a proprietary piece of equipment. I can just pop on down to Target or even on Amazon, buy another Xbox controller, and then I'm back up and running. I don't have to wait for them to ship me one from the manufacturer. So it just makes things a lot better and makes the table more versatile and better in the long run. My table is what's called a downdraft table. You've probably seen a lot of people with a water table. Now what that means is that instead of water down in here, basically there's a tunnel, and that is fed into this pipe, which then exits my building right here. I was really skeptical on this when Ross from Fast Cut told me about this. He really kind of sold me on the idea of doing a downdraft table. Originally, he had I kind of really wanted a water table, but after talking to him, he told me there's basically less smoke with a well-built downdraft table, and I'd be a lot happier with the cut quality. And so far, he was absolutely right. This thing kicks butt. There's no smoke in this building when it's running, and so I think it works great. So now I basically have home marked on the table. I'm going to hook up the air to the plasma. I'm going to power up the plasma and make sure everything's run a test on everything. It'll automatically run just a test, make sure all the tips are good, and then we'll go ahead and start cutting. So at this point, everything's prepped. I've rolled my fab table over here. Basically, these are little 1/4-inch spacers. They come with it. They don't come with the kit. The file comes to cut them out. And what you have to do is you have to figure out the spread on your shock mount and then cut these out of appropriate material. For myself, these are 1/4-inch thick. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to weld them in place, one on either side, and then I'm going to open up these holes with a actual reamer on the drill to the right size, which is 1/2 inch, and then I can start tack welding all this stuff together. So what I'm doing right now is basically finish welding all of this, but you want to make sure that you basically jump around when you're welding it. So I've done a little bit of welding down here, and then I move up here, and I do a little bit of welding over here, and then I'll do a little bit of welding down here, and then I'll kick over to this side and do a little bit of welding down here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to let it cool because I have to take a little break and run a vehicle over for an alignment. So we're going to go do that right now. So when I'm building this rear suspension stuff, what I like to do is actually build it one side at a time and then duplicate it onto the other side. So you can see right here what I've got is I've got the lower control arm, my trailing arm is in. I've got this little basically little mount here. These are called they're just basically filler plates, so it increases the strength of the whole package because instead of just having a single piece of 3/16, what I'm going to do is I'll weld this to the axle, then we'll slide this in, and I'll weld it on there because the load on this bolt is actually this way. So by strengthening this here, it basically makes it a lot stronger without adding a whole bunch of weight. And then this piece that will go on the top, we'll just basically lock it to the axle, keep it from moving side to side. I've got the upper link all done in here. The upper link is all finished, it's all boxed. See, I made these little plates to go over the top of it. That link runs down. These are just mock-up links because I'm actually going to get some 70-75 made. And then because this looks like this, I went ahead and I made the upper shock mount very similar. You can see it's got a similar look to it. And that's basically just, you know, you got the time, might as well do it, make it look cool and all that kind of stuff. So the last thing I need to do is mount my air bump. And to do that, I've got these pre-made air bump cans. I got these from Wide Open Designs, and basically they're going to mount, so they're going to hit the axle right here. They're just going to mount something like that. A couple tubes will come off the chassis. One thing you do need to pay attention to is you don't want the shock to bottom out before the air bump. So these shocks have like this little jounce bumper in them, so even though they're bottomed out right now, there's still a little bit of movement right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount the bump can with the basically air bump bottomed out. So I'll let the air out of the air bump. I'll make a little pad for it to hit on the axle, and it's probably going to end up sitting right like that. At this point, I basically have the passenger side of the buggy done. Now all I have to do is duplicate everything onto the driver's side. I actually like doing it better this way. That way I know all the measurements are perfect on that side. All I got to do is duplicate it on the other side, and then I know it's perfect side to side. I'm happy with all the angles. I'm happy with all the positions of everything. I'm happy with the shocks, happy with the upper link mounts. I'm happy with everything we've done. I do want to gusset these up a little bit, so probably going to run a gusset across the top of this housing, these to either side, and then I'm probably going to run something out the front, capping the front of that just a little bit, and then I may even run something down here. I'm not 100% certain on that yet, but I do want to make a couple of changes. I'm not really happy with the design of these tabs, and I mean, sometimes this happens. I got all excited because these were the tabs that I also used for the lowers in there, and I got all excited because I was like, oh, I can just use the same tabs for both. But I don't like how this looks. If I want to cap it underneath here, which I'm going to want to do, I'm actually going to hit the Heim. So what I'm actually going to do now is basically take a couple steps back. I'm going to redraw these. I'm happy with the location of them and the angle of this upper link. But what I'm going to do, when I rebuild them is I'm basically just going to take this outer tab off and redraw it. And then I'll put it on, clamp it, and then I'll redraw the inner tab as well. I'm not 100% sure if I'm actually going to like completely redesign it to make it look like the upper link brackets, or if I'm just going to add a little bit down here. I just need this to be like maybe half an inch further, and that way I can run a plate, just basically plate it. I'm worried that if there's a rock or something underneath here, it's just going to come along and it'll be going down the slider, and then if it hits this, it's actually going to hit the Heim joint, which I don't want to do. So I definitely want to cap that in just to make sure it's good and strong. So what I've actually done here is now I've cut a new one of these outer tabs, and I just added a little bit of material to either end of it. The good news is the old tab that was there will actually work as a filler plate, just like we have back here on the rear link mount. So I'll be able to take that original tab and reuse it as a filler plate. That'll basically give this a little bit more beef. And then what I've done is I've just made this little cardboard template, little bit of cardboard CAD here. And what's going to happen is it's going to come off that inner mount. It's going to index off of the chassis right here. And then I'm actually going to put a bend in it, and it's going to bend around and wrap that whole link mount just like that. I'm really liking that design right there a lot better. All I got to now is cut it out. Much happier with this new design now that it's plated. Sometimes when I'm bending thick plate like this, what I do is I'll cut a little relief cut in it. That just helps the bend basically bend right along that cut line. What I'll do is I'll then weld it up both inside and out, and then I'll metal finish the outside of this. But now I'm feeling a lot happier with that setup right there. At the same time, I went ahead and basically cut up some gussets for the inner link mounts. I'll actually run a plate gusset all the way across here as well once this is done. And then I have plates that'll stack on here just like the rest of the link mounts, basically to give that double stack feature. And then I'll probably even add a piece of tubing to go from here up to that joint up there, little piece of angle there, and a little piece of angle on this side as well. I have had a tube like this on a previous buggy bend with the link mounts mount like this. So I think if I just run a piece of tubing up to there and from there to there, that'll give that a lot of strength. And then I'll also do probably an Atlas support off this back tube as well. So now the rear suspension is all done. It's basically locked together with a bunch of heavy tacks. It's not fully welded yet. I'll actually take the axle out before I do that. But you can see what I've got going on back here. We now have both our trailing arms in place. All the upper shock mounts are done. Bump cans are mounted. The lower links are done. And all of my tabs have all been built around this design right here, which includes the main tab, a filler panel, and then I'm actually using these cool little, these are called capture plates. These are from Dueling Designs. Adam Dueling makes these, and these will basically slide around that nut, and then I'll weld it, and that way the nut won't move on that tab while I'm using the suspension. So there we go. That was the goal this week, was to get the rear done, possibly move on to the front. Obviously, I did not get a chance to move on to the front. That's okay.